Namaste. I'm Dr. Saril VS from Sakra World Hospital, Bangalore, a JV of CCOM and Toyota Susho, Japan. I'm very glad to present this innovative approach that we have inculcated as a culture, what we call as Ansen First culture through systematic Kaiken Yochi Gemba audits and HIRA methodology in facility upkeep for optimizing patient safety. Rehabilitation facility needs very high resources and 100% safety compliance is essential because we are dealing with highly vulnerable patients. Many preventable scenarios lead to frequent equipment breakdown, and all of this finally lands up in poor patient satisfaction and also loss of revenue. So before the Kaizen situation, we had conventional practices, which is a reactive approach leading to unsafe facilities. And in an ideal situation, we wanted an Ansen first culture or a patient safety first culture through proactive equipment upkeep for patient safety. The situations to further break down unsafe facilities causing potential harm to patients, and the harm can be caused due to electric shock, burns, fire, burst, infection, falls or central events. Careless attitude has been a huge issue towards the hazards and risk exposure by the staff, and almost 6 different areas we identified MUDAs or wastage. Now, this picture sums up the entire innovative approach. As you can see, one simple thread takes a lot of tremendous stress over a long period of time, and finally it breaks up. And the question here is, when would you like to intervene? Is it in the beginning or is it in the end? We have done a root cause analysis using an Ishikawa diagram. So when would you intervene is where we were stuck. And this is the root cause analysis. What we developed as a countermeasure is called Kaiken Yochi, or a hazard prediction as a safety culture. Now, what we do on a daily basis, the working clinicians and not biomedical engineers or any back-end staff is doing a proactive hazard identification where nothing is actually happened to the patient, but we still identify those things, and we call it as a Gemba audit. We do a HIRA scoring. This leads to positive incident raising, which means harm has not happened or occurred, reached to the patient. We do a deep team brainstorming where suggestions are taken from the working staff and an appreciation culture is given for that. This leads to a lot of Kaizen modifications on equipment and practices, of course with the consensus of the OEM, and this is a continuous cycle that is repeated. This is how the target is set. The entire Kaizen is implemented through PDCA cycles for standardization, as you can see. And a Gantt chart is used for an activity tracker. This is further explaining you the entire process, which is completely supervised by a Kaiken Yochi champion. And like the Mumbai Dabbawalas, we haven't missed even a single day of this activity in the past 5 years. This is a great slide which shows even the doctors, the clinicians, and everybody, and the non-clinical staff gets a participatory approach in proactive equipment facility upkeep. Various training methodologies are implemented, including a WhatsApp-based group Kaiken Yochi photo analysis. And around 40 different modifications on equipment for patient safety has been implemented, which has given us around a cost saving of 12.75 lakhs. And to tell about the last 40th one, which is actually the discarded wheelchair rims are used for fibers placement of movable Swiss balls. The results are like this, and what's most important and striking over here is it's a trend which has happened over past 5 years, where we have moved from different cultures of a pathological to a reactive, to a calculative, to a proactive, to something what we call as resilient. And positive incident reporting proportion has been increasing and sustaining. The adherence to safety practices, proportion of equipment found clean and disinfected, fibers process adherence on Gemba has all been on the rise. Further standardization or for sustenance, automated digital complaint escalation system, Gemba shadowing by the supervisors has been implemented for sustaining, dedicated quality circle for safety, and appreciating integrity through HR Laurel Awards. And this is the key actually. The more the integrity, people are working in a fearless environment where they're just outright explaining what has happened, what error is happening at the very earliest. The residual challenges have been lack of adherence during some of the peak hours, as you all may agree, lack of HERA-based triaging for complaint closure. So we are identifying at an early, that's what is most important. The Cahocon or further application is implemented in other departments for similar nature. So these are the different cultures that we evolved from a pathological culture, from who cares as long as we are not caught, to identify challenges in advance and deal with it. And now we are actually having a resilient work culture where it is answer first is a way of life. And this is a great example of teamwork where clinicians and non-clinicians come together. And what we sum up it like what we call as bad news first culture. Bring in the bad news first, let's resolve it first, then we will get into more details about today's work. And with God inside with us, we are doing really well, and we would be very happy to extend this particular innovation to any hospital because it's very simple, very effective, where every stakeholder gets involved to safeguard our facilities. Thank you so much. Arigato gozaimasu.
How do you monitor the complaints? Because that is very difficult. Because it's a daily routine, right?
Yes.
How do you monitor it? Who monitors it?
That's why there is a dedicated champion who is supervising this entire activity, because otherwise it is one of the implementations what we did. We realized that if nobody else is supervising, when cat is away, the mice is at play. So we started deputing a dedicated champion, and then recently we started add-on supervision by the supervisors or the seniors from the clinicians actually. It's not done by the engineering backend team. So they are monitoring it on a very daily basis, and a communication email for follow-up of all the identified problems are on a daily basis sent to all the stakeholders. And every week we have a meeting with engineering, biomedical, IT department, housekeeping, all of them together for a very rigorous follow-up, if I could say that.
Was there a dip in the reactive incident reporting after this?
Yeah, so the whole project is about shifting the mindset from a reactive to a more proactive thing. So let's not wait. And I have a confession here to make, because even in our hospital, the category D and above is always taken up for further discussion, analysis, and everything. Though we always want to promote category A, B, and C because it's not even reached the patient. It's kind of a near miss. But even this is all comes under that category. And we really do a lot of brainstorming and things like that, just to ensure that it's not reaching the patients or even the staff. That's the beauty of it. All these problems can, even before the patient, it can actually, an electric shock can happen to my therapist or the staff actually. So it's definitely gone to a completely proactive. So the graph that I had shown was a proportion between, out of all the incidents that is raised, the proportion of positive incidents versus the category D and above. Yeah, so which is always on the race. Thank you.
Dr. Saril, it was a good presentation here. It was spanning over 5 years. And when was that time that you saw that there is a change, especially among the clinicians, to report and to intervene?
Yes. I must thank you for that question. That means like I've really communicated the message to you and you reciprocate what we have gone through. Yes. After the first year, I could say that the clinicians told, so there are a lot of resistance, and problem is not just that one phase. Every time a new joinee comes from a medical college, because this has not been inculcated into your system. So every single time we have a new joinee, we face the resistance. But what we do is, from the very first day, so we have a robust system of induction where 1 month, though they have passed, they are PG students, we don't allow them to touch our patients for 1 month. And there are exams that they have to pass with 80% score. But this is one activity we engage them from day one. So they have been supervised. It's just inculcated to them, and we tell them that in this hospital, as far as you're with us, this matters to us. And this is the first thing that an employee starts engaging with, much before even start treating the patient actually. So I would say the third year onwards, we had a little more favorable kind of an attitude and approach coming from the staff and also the management, because it's not a single team event. There's a lot of stakeholders involved. When we are identifying a lot of small errors, the biomedical engineer would get upset because I would rather, repair something which is down. And here you're talking about like one wire is broken, something is over here, something is over there. Our complaint list goes high. But then we show this project, this data to tell them that, hey, listen, eventually we are helping you. Your work actually gets less, and we are all in a much no worry kind of a environment. So all the stakeholders, it was not just the clinicians, even the non-clinicians were not really, because that habit is not there. It's not something that you heard of. So, and to the clinicians, we tell that in front of a patient, do you want to sweat? You've done everything, you start the procedure and the machine is not working. So it's your image, it's your reputation that is at stake. There's no point in shouting at the biomedical engineer in front of the patient. No point at all. It's our responsibility.
All the best.
Thank you.